Hi, welcome to our demo of our project, Say Their Names. So we kind of just start with like a really simple screen, and it just kind of has a rotating list of names that we lost to police brutality, ending with justice for Black lives. Before we start, we really wanted to pay tribute to those who have lost their lives to police brutality. And although we are using creating visualizations and doing analyses, it's really important to consider these people as people and not just statistics. They're really individuals who fell victim to a system riddled with injustice. And even though their moments are a death in time, as we play this visualization, which animates kind of creating a dot for each instance of time a person was killed, we can see that the scars that are left when a person is killed by the police, those scars are permanent, and they're inflicted upon their communities, their families, their livelihoods are lost, and it remains forever ingrained in our history. So it's really important that we pay tribute to them and that we must say their names. So we first collected some data on police brutality incidents between 2013 and 2019 and examined the racial breakdown. So in the inner ring, we have the percentage of killings between 2013 and 2019 broken down by race. We can see that Black people are about 25%, white people are about 45%. And then we compare it to the percentage of the total population. And from here, we can see that Black people, while only making up 12% of the population, are about 26% of killings. And compared to white people, which are 61% of our population, but 44% of our killings. So we can see that there is some form of an association between race and also being a victim of police brutality. And we can see that although Black people are only, again, 12%, they're twice as likely to be a victim of police brutality. And so now we kind of want to examine, well, what is causing, some of those disparities? And the first thing we looked at was comparing violent crime rates to police killing rates. Do areas that have higher crime rates would have, typically more police responses, which would, maybe does that possibly result in having higher killings? And what we found was that that's actually not true. As you can see here, the violent crime rates across all of these various cities in the US is kind of all over the place. And there isn't exactly an association with the police killing rate. So as we can see here, we are only limited to exploring associations because the data is not widely available that kind of examines causal effects of violent crime rates and police killing rates. But we can at least examine associations and see that, well, if it's not the violent crime rate and it's not, based on kind of the areas in which people are living in, then maybe it has to do more along the lines of the police forces themselves. So we first took a look at the effects of de-escalation policy. So there really has been a recent push, especially following the events of George Floyd, for police departments to offer de-escalation training. But we wanted to examine has it been successful in the past? And we were able to find 4 cities that had implemented de-escalation training in 2016: Denver, Cincinnati, Dallas, and San Francisco. And when we looked at these cities, the association we were able to see was that there was a slight decrease in the immediate year following the implementation of the policy, but then rates seem to kind of climb back up, specifically in Denver as well as Cincinnati. And so, we are only able, again, to assume, an association, but we're seeing that these policies, even though they are being implemented, they're not being successful. And so then that kind of leads to the next question of, well, if police officers have these policies in place, are they following it? Are they, facing the consequences for not properly following guidelines? What are the punishments that are in place? And so that kind of led us to this next visualization, which I will reload for sake of demoing. And so here we have this thing where we allow the user to kind of guess, how many police officers do you think are held accountable for their actions per 100? And so the user is able to kind of pick, and you can pick like a decimal number because it is a statistic. So I'm going to, kind of guess around 14.5. And then you're able to click the actual number, and it tells you that actually only 1.4% or 1.4 people out of every 100 are charged for police brutality. And within that, there's also very limited amounts of data. So only 48 are known incidents of the 117 total from 2013 to present, where officers were charged. 19 were convicted, 29 were acquitted. So even within that, when they are being held accountable, they are still not being fully held accountable. They're really able to, a lot of cases, be acquitted and then be relieved of all charges. And so that kind of motivates our call to action. And we really want to push for transparency with the data. So throughout this entire process, we were, really working with public data, and there was it was very limited, and we had to be deliberate on how we merge data sets and the connections we were doing from numbers. Because it's publicly available data, there was also very limitations in discovering causations amongst the many associations. We were really only able to examine associations because the data is not transparent enough from the police department. They don't release enough data where we can examine the effects of specific policies on police brutality rates. And again, just from the perspective of somebody who's trying to analyze it, this causes some problems. But also from the perspective of just being an American person, um, data transparency really helps educate our population on what's going on, what are the effects of this, to the everyday citizen who doesn't sit down in front of a computer and look at data. It's also really important for them to be able to know what is working, what isn't working, because they ultimately do have a voice. Um, and at the end of the day, it's very important to remember that even though once an arrest occurs, even if a report is required, the cops complete the report without a single word from a possibly innocent arrested person. And so with that, that is the conclusion of our project. We hope you enjoyed it.